Okay, let's see. Now, we've talked about racial bias. We've talked about Israel, or at least a little bit about the Israeli-U.S. relations. We've gotten into some depth as it relates to the Kagan nomination, Dr. Berwick, and, well, what else? All I know is that there seems to be a need or a feeling in this room right now that we lighten it up a bit. And how about we do that, although with somebody with a lot of seriousness behind her. Candice Komar, thank you so much for being with us.
Nice
family law, founding member, downtown law firm. Of course, it'll be up there. And one of the top 50 women attorneys, one of the best attorneys in the state. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, let's get to the Tiger Woods. Now, let's do that. We'll talk celebrities. We'll talk prenups. We'll talk about the madness. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that we're a country that is fascinated by celebrity right now. And, of course, in addition to that, or as part of that, we have 24/7 news cycles, all this technology. So whatever seems to be the case could be out in the world immediately. About 3 weeks ago, we heard Tiger Woods was going to fork over $750 million because of his affairs as part of a divorce with his wife. Now it's $100 million, or so the reports say. What the heck is going on?
Nobody really knows for sure.
That's a good start.
But what we do know is that people are so interested in other people's woes and misery, especially when you have a celebrity like Tiger Woods. And let's face it, it was a salacious matter from start to finish and is still ongoing. And people surmise. They continue to surmise about celebrity divorces. We've had big cases in this state, and Mr. Hardy's case, it's amazing how many people are authorities on exactly what the settlement was, and it has nothing to do with what actually happened, and people just like to talk, I think.
Well, we're all experts now. That's another consequence, of course, of all the news and the technology. But that being said, it's TMZ, which has now become a primary news source for an entire generation, that is reporting this deal. And I guess it was Forbes that said, wait a minute, it can't be $750 million. He's only worth $500 million, maybe 600. That being said, is this the type of thing that strikes you as excessive or reasonable, considering all the circumstances?
That is such a hot question. I don't know if that's even fair to ask. First of all, I do know that there was a prenuptial agreement.
Right.
We don't know what the terms of that were. I would imagine that the prenup, as most prenups are, provide for a certain restriction on what is accumulated as marital property. Tiger Woods obviously had quite a bit of net worth when he went into the marriage with Ellen Woods, and so it probably eliminated or minimized his risk going into it. Sure. It's my understanding from all the readings that I've done all over the internet that he has paid beyond what was prescribed in the agreement.
I was about to say that. And yet if you look at 750, somebody would say, wait a second, he's getting off light. But the 750 is a red herring. It's meaningless.
We don't know what he's worth. And they were married 5 years. About that. 2 children. We don't know. What is reasonable under the circumstances is very difficult to project because we're dealing with a predicate that's unknown.
One last thing I want to get to before we come back in one final segment, and I don't know whether I could fit it in, but of course if you buy these reports and the speculation, ultimately she's not going to be allowed to talk about this. She's not going to be able to write. Now I could be crazy here, okay, Candice, but I can't imagine there's much worse than we already know, unless there is.
Well, I think...
Is it hush money?
And I've given this a lot of thought. I think that it's so important to his image. He's done a lot to repair it. He's been able to keep some of the discussions about his mistresses quiet. And the last thing he needs right now for his economic benefit is for his wife to be on the talk shows, to do the book, to do the movie. I think that he wants to put this behind him. I think that his advisors have probably determined how much it's worth to him. And even though I said there's probably a prenup, when you have a prenup, it doesn't necessarily define exactly what you're going to get. It might say that she gets a percentage of his net worth. Well, we need to figure out what his net worth is.
All right. Well, she wants right. So that's evolving.
So to answer your question in a short way, I do believe it's probably hush money, and it's probably money well spent for him to be able to move forward.
No, there's no hushy when it comes to the mistresses. They're in line to get on television and have their own shows. So the madness continues. We're going to continue the conversation with Candice. We're enjoying it. We're lightening it up, although we know there are a lot of serious side effects to this. Tiger yesterday saying he was leaving Ireland when he was right next door in Scotland to go back and see the children. That's probably a sign of something that is developing. We'll clean it up in one more window. Keep it here on PCNC.